Mrs. Kehinde Ola-Oni, the blind widow of the late fiery human rights activist, Comrade Ola Oni, recounts her agonizing experiences since her husband died about 19 years ago. In this interview with OLUFEMI ATOYEBI Your, husband died in December 1999. How have you been coping with life after his demise? Life has been so tough for this family since he died. Financially, it is difficult. You cannot compare a burden that is shared by two people to one that is solely shouldered by one person, especially when that person is a completely blind widow. My eyes are open but I cannot see with them. We have received help from some neighbors, comrades and other people who identify with us. For example, Comrade Sonia Lauyuk Mashudarubami, Comrade Olaranti, Professor Ikinojo, Baletasokan, Governor Rauf Arugbasola and a host of others still familiarize themselves with the family. They pay us visits and offer support as God puts it in their minds. I cannot forget Arugbasola for his help. If you have a chance of marrying again in the next world, would you marry an activist like your husband? Ola Oni was more than a husband to me. He was like my father. He was not rich but he took care of his family. He carried everyone along. He did not discriminate in the choice of people he associated with or helped. When he died, he was proclaimed as the hero of the masses. The market women, civil servants, students, civil society organizations, human rights campaigners and activists, farmers, the young and old, labor unions and even his enemies rained eulogies on him. He trained many people in governance and leadership and they all assumed big positions in life. He started democracy in our sitting room. People would resume here every day to hear from him what direction to go. I handled the women affairs throughout the 33 local government areas of Oyo State. Ola Oni was so supportive. So, if I had another opportunity to marry, I would prefer to marry him a million times over. What special trait did you see in him after you got married to him? I lost my father 2 months after my twin sister and I were born. I did not know what fatherhood was all about until I married my husband. Could see that our mother, Deborah, did a lot to raise us. She taught us how to be active. It turned out to be a good blend with my husband. You're an activist like your husband. Did his death kill the morale in you? Like him, I was and still am an activist. I am the life president of the Action Women of Nigeria. For 4 years, I was the coordinator of women in Nigeria. We did not receive a salary for the service. I was a retired civil servant but I remained strong. We would bring women together and train them in leadership so that when they found themselves in a big position, they would stand out. Today, many women in government lack that training so the position they find themselves in is strange to them. I began activism in the 1970s and attended the Beijing conference in 1995. My husband trained me in activism and I became a library to other women. In the kitchen, he would come and lecture me on political education, world history and so on. When a book is published, he would summarize it and discuss it with me. I had a typewriter in the kitchen. When he spoke, I would type it out. He was a bookseller, magazine publisher and well known among good men in society. His death was painful. Can you recap his last moments? On May 1, 1998, he joined a protest to agitate for a better welfare package for workers. There was a rally in Ibadan and he was part of it. The workers were sad because of the way their welfare was being handled. The rally was a usual occurrence on Workers' Day to sensitize government to how to govern the people. During the rally, security men picked him up. The regime of the late head of state, Gen. Sani Abacha, at that time saw him as a threat to their anti-people policies. The government was all about those in government. They made themselves extremely rich while the people suffered from their misrule. These are what my late husband was fighting against, because in the early days of the independent Nigeria, salary was paid on the 21st of every month. The Ministry of Agriculture would sell egg, meat, vegetables and other farm produce to workers at lower rates. These measures were put in place by government to support workers and their families. Workers were happy, but today, workers have been neglected by the government. What happened to the Ministry of Agriculture and other ministries? Why do they exist when they cannot render any meaningful service to the nation? What is the work of the people working there? Are they being encouraged by government to work? Government should not see giving job or salary to workers as a favor. They should make things work. Our children are dying in the North African desert and sea in their quest to escape to Europe because their own country has failed them. Fish has eaten the flesh of many African youths and children, including Nigerians, in the Mediterranean Sea after their dinghies sink. Those who made it to Malaysia, US, UK and so on are doing degrading works to survive. Kidnapping and robbery have become preferred jobs for our youths, but I don't think they actually want to do these. If they can find jobs easily, they will not think of robbery and kidnapping. Widows are suffering, beggars are multiplying. I am a blind widow who needs support to survive, but you will be surprised to hear that people knock at my door seeking support. Out of what people give me, I give others. That is how bad the situation is today. The system must change. This is the kind of nation Ola Oni strived to avoid. Where was your husband taken to after his arrest during the rally? He was taken to the police station on Iwa Road and locked in a cell that had no ventilation. The police refused to allow him eat the food we took to the station. On another day, I was chased away when a police shot into the air to scare me. The police said I should have cautioned my husband when he was attacking government with his campaigns. He spent 4 days in the cell before he was taken to Iagangu police station and later to an unknown place. After that, he was arrested a couple of times again. I remember that long before 1999, he was arrested several times. One of the arrests was executed in his office while I was pregnant with one of our children. When was the last time you saw him? The last time I saw him was December 22, 1999 at the University College Hospital, Ibadan. That was the day he died. He died as a result of the injustice he suffered when he was arrested and beaten by security men on May 1, 1999. He was locked up and given inhuman treatment. He spent only 2 days at the UCH. It was reported that he fell ill shortly after his return to Ibadan from Lagos, where he attended a meeting of the Alliance for Democracy in Lagos. Did you think there was foul play? He had malaria before he traveled, but he was treated and discharged from the hospital. Then he told me that he had to go to Lagos for the meeting. When he returned to Ibadan, he fell ill. I called Lagos and asked them what happened to him. I asked them the kind of food he ate at the meeting. Anyway, we took him to the hospital after his condition worsened. I was scared. I could not drive and he could not drive either. A neighbor helped us to take him to the UCH in his car. In fact, the neighbor spent so much on tests and drugs. Like I said, my husband never acquired ill-gotten wealth. At a point, he could not talk again. He made gestures with his hands but he could not tell me anything. I think he had something to say. I called on the name of Jesus Christ and held on to him. Soon after, my husband died. You were a close confidant of your husband. Did he tell you what happened between him and former Governor Lam Adesina? Before the late Adesina became governor, he used to come here and sit with my husband in this sitting room. His journey to the government house was plotted in this house. They were both comrades. There was a time when my husband was locked up in a gaudy prison. 3 days later, Adesina was also picked up. I used to meet Adesina's wife there whenever I took food to my husband in the prison. My husband campaigned for Adesina. He spent his personal money on his campaign. When Adesina became governor, he made my husband the chairman of a probe panel that looked into financial activities of past military administrators in the state. One of them was invited but he said he would not come because Ola Oni was the chairman. My husband replied him and wrote to him that he would not mind stepping aside for the military administrator to appear. He lived up to his words by resigning from the panel. Before then, he said he had seen some files but the actual fact file was missing. He sensed something was not right. Before his resignation, I expressed my displeasure with the job but he wanted to please the people. He did not tell me that he had a clash with Lam Adesina. But after he died, the governor and his wife visited us separately and that was all. I did not see any of them again. Did you make an attempt to contact the governor? On March 19, 2000, police invaded this house and said they were looking for something. It was 3 months after my husband's death and less than a year into the tenure of Adesina as governor. On the day the police came, the Apapawo Udua members were having their meeting in our house. They wanted to choose new executives. They were in the house. I wanted them to use a school compound around but they said they preferred our house. Suddenly, people started scampering because of the huge police presence. The police knocked at the gate and asked me to come out. I had nothing to hide so I came out of the house. Immediately I opened the gate, one of them shot a tear gas into my face. I collapsed but they dragged me on the floor and tore my clothes. Then, another policeman shot a canister into one of the rooms upstairs, igniting fire. The policeman fetched water to put out the fire. They then forced me to surrender our car and bus keys. They took away our computers, typewriters and everything. They beat me and others up. When we got to the station, I was asked what relationship I had with the government of Adesina. I said my husband supported the governor to emerge. One of the policemen said government sent them to raid our house. Will it be correct to say that part of the reasons for your blindness was the tear gas sprayed into your eyes by the police? What happened on March 19, 2000 in this house caused my blindness and that of my twin sister. My mother did not suffer any form of blindness. She died at a very ripe age and she read the Bible till her death. She never used glasses or visited an optician. Having absorbed the chemical substance from the tear gas, I started having problems with my eyes. I was treated at various hospitals and one of my children, based in Germany, arranged for my trip to have surgery in the country. Eventually, I went blind. I am still willing to help the society, but with my condition, I need an aid to do things even at home. You claimed that the tear gas that was shot into your face caused your blindness. Why did your twin sister, who was not with you at the time, go blind almost at the same time? We have always been together. We lived in the same house and married friends who worked at the University of Ibadan. After the death of our mother, we lived with one of our sisters who said she would only agree to give our hands in marriage to people who would not separate us. So, when I agreed to marry my husband, my twin sister, Taiwo, also got into a relationship with my husband's friend. Our children were always together and we lived in the same area. At a point, some people were wondering if my husband married twins. When the incident happened, my sister rushed to the house and went into the rooms to rearrange them. She also perceived the smell and the chemical got into her eyes. It destroyed her eyes just like it did my eyes, and she also went blind. We now live together in this house since we are both widows. Our story is a pathetic one, but we thank God for everything. What about other children of yours? Like I said, one of them has been in Germany since 1992. But others are in Nigeria finding it difficult to make ends meet. They are all graduates with no good job. One of them is trying to work on some of my husband's books. It has been tough for this family, like I said. You struggled to receive your gratuity from the Ministry of Agriculture in Akure, Ondo State, without success a few years ago. Have you been paid now? Before I traveled to Germany for the eye surgery, I was traveling frequently to Ondo State for my gratuity. I had no money, so I needed everything I could legitimately get. At a point, I was borrowing money for transport to Ondo State. At the time, my twin sister was in Akure. She would accommodate me in their house in Ijapo because I could not afford hotel accommodation. A former governor of the state met me and my twin sister at the secretariat one day while we were trying to trace my file and gave us an 10,000. Unfortunately, they did not find my original file until after more visits to the state. It contributed to my weakness because I was psychologically demoralized. I felt bad that after all I and my husband did to Nigeria, we could suffer in this way. I have yet to get my gratuity after many years of trying. I have a lot of bills to pay. I and my twin sister are blind and we need support from people to survive. That is why we employed a helper, who has been with us for the past 8 years. She comes from a far distance and I need to pay her salary. I think the gratuity has yet to be paid because of frequent change of government and people who handle the files at the ministry. I did not get the job from the Ondo state government. I was employed by the government of the old western state. I was later transferred to Akure before the region was split in 2 states. However, I am from Ondo state while my late husband was from Ekiti state. Did doctors assure you that you will see again? That was the assurance I got after the surgery. But I was told that the treatment must continue. Where will I get the money to go to Germany again for the treatment? I once visited some government houses in the Southwest to see the governors for assistance. I met former Oyo State Governor, Rashidi Ladoye, when he was the governor. He was surprised to see the condition of my eyes. He gave me some money. He asked if I could recognize the color of his clothes and I told him I could not see clearly. When did you retire from service? I retired in 1978 after 15 years in service. My fear is that someone could be playing a game with my gratuity. The last person to keep the file was one man called Mr. Ale. I don't know if he is still there. Each time I went there, I was asked to produce 3 copies of every document I have. Last time it was treated was around 2012. I am begging the Ondo State Governor, Rotimi Akeredolu, to help me with my gratuity because we are suffering. You and your 2 sons were charged to court with attempted murder. What really happened? When this house was invaded by the police barely 3 months after the death of my husband, what surprised me was that the police said they saw a firearm in my house. I had just lost my husband and I was trying to pull myself together. On the day the police raided our house and set it on fire, I was arrested with my sons and a mechanic that was repairing a car in the house. We were charged to court in Ibadan. It was a trumped-up charge and the youths were not happy about it. Did you inform the late Governor Lam Adesina about your predicament? I went to the governor's office but he ignored me. Did not want to see me. Because of frequent appearances in court, I had no time for myself. They kept adjourning every 3 or 4 days, so I could not rest. A visitor to our house, Kehinde Ola-Oni, was also arrested. None of the members of the Apapo Udua that had their election in the house at the time of the raid was arrested. My family was the target. Is the case still in court? I believe it has been vacated because we no longer hear anything about it. When Ladoye became governor, I told him about it. I showed him the letter of summons and he was furious. He said he would not entertain oppression in his government. He wondered why a family of someone who labored so much for the country would be subjected to such agony. I think he called the Attorney General of the state and that was the end of the case. I don't know our sin against them. I lost my husband, lost my sight and I am still suffering. Who sued you, the police or the state? The government of the day, the Lam Adesina administration, knew about it. In an interview, the late Governor Adesina said he could not stop the police from doing their work. In the heat of the matter, a policeman came here to beg for forgiveness. He was one of those who invaded the house and tore my clothes. He said he was playing the game of drafts when he was called to join the team of police that invaded the house. He said he was not on duty. Such a thing cannot happen in a state and the governor will claim ignorance of it. Copyright Punch. All rights reserved. This material, and other digital content on this website, may not be reproduced, published, broadcast, rewritten or redistributed in whole or in part without prior express written permission from Punch. Contact via email protected. Visited 1,984 times, 23 visits today.